A lot of Sixers to dive into here. Jason Blevins, J Blevins NBA on Twitter. And, of course, you can check out his Sixers coverage at 97.3ESPN.com. And he, like all guests, appears via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And he joins us right now with more insight on this Sixers restart team. What's going on, Jay?
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
All is well. So, before we get into some stuff, I want to get your level of belief in what we're seeing from Ben Simmons. Everybody seems to be somewhere on that. You have been this is what I want to ask you.
Yep.
How often are you at a practice?
Fairly often. When they have, during the season, they don't practice.
Right, during the season when in Camden.
Yeah. I'm there during training camp every day. So during the regular season, if they have a practice at home, I try to be there anytime I can. So it's most of the time. That doesn't mean that we get to watch practice. Mm-hmm. We get to see basically after organized activities about 15 minutes of shoot around. So I think if you're asking, do I get to watch him there working on the perimeter game?
Right.
That's hit or miss. So, what you do see is before games.
Right.
For about 2 hours.
Well, that's what I said, Jay, was we've all seen him before the games. We've seen him in these summer videos. But Brett said the other day, well, he shot more threes in Orlando than he has almost all season long. And I actually, before he said that, I wondered aloud, how often in a 5-on-5 live, inter squad is he pulling up from 3-point range in a practice environment? I don't know the answer to that question. That's why I was asking, have you ever seen or has it ever been discussed? Like, does he pull up from 3 or anywhere else in practice?
It has been discussed, and teammates sort of dance around it, which tells me it really doesn't happen very often. I think they protest lightly that it never happens, but I wouldn't say that you get the vibe that it happens very often in practice. So that could be a real change.
So that would go to my next question that was kind of starting this off. Are you buying into it then, knowing that, he doesn't do it often in practice, if at all? Brett has now kind of, like, they're putting a lot of pressure on this kid again. Like, hey, the team is putting out the Sixers official Twitter account, has him on video shooting threes. Brett's come out and said he shot more threes than he has. So is it time that we buy into it?
Well, he really should take these 3 scrimmage games and just fire them up, launch them. And there's a couple of things I like about it, not to dive into the mechanics of it. I'm not a shot doctor, but he really used to rise up and sort of pause at the top of his jump and then sort of shoot on the way down. He's definitely doing less of that now. So it looks more in rhythm, which is a great thing. I think that was one of the biggest things aside from the ball rotation that he has. You can't see in any of these videos the rotation on the ball. So that's not something we'll know. Even on TV throughout these playoffs, we won't know that. So I think if he comes out in these 3 scrimmage games that don't count for anything, he should put up 4 a game. Why not?
We have never seen this lineup of Shake Milton, Jay Rich, Tobias, Ben, and Joel. So is it fair to ask for this to work? You can kind of look at it one of 2 ways. One, no one else has seen it, so maybe you can surprise some teams. Or 2, look, there's a lot to figure out in such a short amount of time. Is it fair to say this has to work when they haven't really played together?
Well, I think what they're going to do really is pretty simple pick and roll stuff, and it's not a lot of complicated actions. So I think the DHO stuff is actually a little more tricky timing wise. I think you've got some real leapers on here that can go get the ball even if you don't have the timing worked out exactly right. So adding in pick and roll into this is something that they're not going to have other teams aren't going to have a lot of film on, but it's something that all of these guys have sort of done all of their career, maybe just not together. So I'm optimistic about it. I think it's a good add to the scheme.
So I guess we should not graze over the fact that you said he should shoot 4 a game or that he might shoot 4 a game. I mean, is this something that is realistic in your opinion, that he just comes out and becomes a different player almost all of a sudden? Because I have said, Jay, that, when they hit the pause button, this was the 1920 season. Well, they've taken time off. They're going to be returning to the 1920 season, but almost as their 2021 versions of themselves. So there is something to say that their game, all these players or a lot of these players' games could actually evolve when they return.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about it, today's his birthday. He just turned 24, right? And he turned 24 or 23. He's incredibly young. And the development that happens at that age, there's no reason to think that he couldn't add over the course of 3 or 4 months some significant changes to his skill package. And but I was on here last week and I said don't hold your breath for it. I just think that Brett said today that the top end rotation guys are going to play about 20 minutes per game during the scrimmages, and it seems like that's the kind of time to just let it fly, right?
Yeah.
See how it feels, get it out of your head, get enough reps in so that it's no longer a novelty for you in your own brain. It's a perfect time to do it. So I'd like to see it. I think a lot of people have always said that, just take the shots, even if you don't make them. If he goes 2 for 12 through 3 scrimmage games, is anybody going to really freak out?
No.
If he takes 12 in 3 games, I think everybody should celebrate.
I set the over-under at 5 in the 8 games. What do you go?
5 makes or 5 attempts?
5 attempts.
Yeah, I'd like to see him average about 1.5 per game, so I'm going to set it at 12.
All right, so you're going way over. This deep road you're going to owe me.
Yeah, I think you should. I just think that, even Kyle O'Quinn, if they're just going to leave you out there, you just got to launch it.
Yeah, but that's the way we all think. But, I mean, like, when he made the shot against the Chinese team in the exhibition, it was like, all right, you made one, but, like, why wouldn't you take it? Like, every 3-point attempt he has actually taken, all the ones where he has caught it and shot it, he's 3 for 3. He's never missed, yet he doesn't shoot them.
Yeah, he's pretty staunch about making the right play, and he clearly thinks he can find a better option if he puts the ball on the floor and finds somebody else or gets to the rim. And it's really about playing chess, not checkers at this point. He's getting to that point in his career where he has to be thinking multiple possessions in advance and not thinking about just it's like poker, right? You don't just play the one hand. You're trying to build a long game, set people up for the long term. So manipulating a defense is more than just the one possession. I think that's something he should add to his game.
How much of the optimism we have for him shooting is all about the fact that there's going to be no fans in this open gym? If we were returning to stadiums that were sold out, do you think we would be this high on him actually taking the jump shot?
I wish I knew the answer to that question. Because Ben just doesn't seem fazed by fans and pressure like that. He just doesn't seem that way, but I think your observation makes perfect sense for anyone else. It just makes perfect sense for a human who is supremely confident about something. To do it in front of 20,000 people is a lot harder to do it in front of 2 benches. So I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. I just don't know. I don't know if he's immune to crowd pressure or not.
That'll be interesting to see if the environment, because we have seen him shoot in empty environments. It seems like maybe that's something. I know we joked about that. My gosh, going back into like April, like, this might be the best thing for him. There'll be nobody there. Yeah, he'll feel comfortable. Overall, though, what kind of sense, now that Brett has kind of spoke and it seems that Shake is definitely going to be there and Ben's going to be there, are we going to see a different Sixers offense when they return?
Yeah, I think we really are. I really do. I really do think it's going to look quite a bit different. Unless you have the wheels come off with Shake, which, which, even today, Glenn Robinson was just effusive in his praise of Shake. So, unless the wheels completely come off of that look, you're gonna just see a completely different look with him running the ball. It's just gonna look like a different offense.
Yeah. I want to get something that you wrote about, Jay, regarding Embiid. And this is a very, very interesting story and could be a big difference maker when this all kind of comes to head here is, when he's home and he's in Philly, he's kind of a loner. And here, can't be a loner. You kind of have to be around everybody, and he's actually embracing it.
Yeah, it's the last thing I asked him before they left for Orlando. Was it something that I've noticed? It's an odd thing that I think the public image is that Ben Simmons is quiet and Joel Embiid is sort of an outgoing guy, and it's quite opposite when the cameras aren't on. So I've been fascinated by this. But as this season has gone on, and really going back to last season, seeing them in some of the road gyms that didn't have a lot of energy, I've worried about his mindset and a little bit of his connectedness to his team. So the last thing I asked in Camden before they left for Orlando was about him spending time with his teammates. And he said, look, I don't have hobbies. I don't go out. I don't party. I don't drink alcohol. I just like to go home. This is just what I'm like. And, everybody's different, which is fair. But for a team where they've all pretty much admitted that chemistry was an issue, I just think my sense was that they have to create that. And Brett and Joel have talked about that down there. So I think it was Friday or Saturday, I talked to Brett about this, and he said that Joel had actually come up to him and said that he feels more connected to his teammates than really ever before. And it's just part of this being in the bubble. This is, these are all the people you have. You don't have a girlfriend at home. You don't have your dogs. Your options are go sit alone in a hotel room, which gets old for everybody eventually, or spend time with your teammates. And it's really building something with them. I can see it on other people's faces as well. There's just a different sense of camaraderie, and let's hope it translates to the floor, because the biggest thing you really want is the verbal communication off the floor, the trusting people's intentions, and then you can start to trust people on the floor and talk through the different scenarios and, the if then else stuff, the ear tug, wink and nod stuff that Brett talks about. So, it's been a good thing. I think the best thing to come out of this for the long term, maybe just those guys being forced to be together around each other in not a nightclub, on the road or anything like that. Just being together in a casual environment, fishing, doing the little stuff to just build that off-court chemistry. And off the record, I've gotten this from, a lot of people say on Twitter, if you look on Twitter, oh, they don't have to be best friends off the floor. You don't have to like your coworkers to do well together. But off the record, I've gotten people, that have said, of course you do. This is team sports. Of course you have to trust each other. Of course you have to, care for each other. So I think it's huge.
Absolutely, I do too. And I was thinking, how much credit do we give someone like Tobias Harris throughout these times? Because it definitely seems like he has stepped up and became this really big leader. And I wonder if maybe he learned a little bit about Ben and Joel's personality, that he was able to kind of find his role in terms of being that leader. It's sort of like I expected Al Horford to play this role, but Tobias has stepped up and surprised me.
You're totally right, and I totally agree. And my next article, actually, for the Painted Lines, I've been doing this hokey Gary Buseyism sort of TEAM thing. And Ben Simmons was the teacher. Al Horford is the elder. Joel Embiid was the anchor, right? We just did him. And the last one is Tobias Harris, who I really see as a force multiplier for this team. And I think, like you said, he is the guy that throughout this entire league suspension of play, he has kept them together, communicating about a whole range of issues, much more non-basketball than basketball. He's the guy that has reached out consistently day after day to keep people connected and one-on-one. A lot of the young players hear from him one-on-one every day as well before they got there. So the guy is just all of the intangibles. He is earning his money there. Now, if that translates into all-star level play, then now you've really got quite a team. But I agree, Al Horford is much less vocal throughout the season than I expected. And they say he's been more vocal down there in the gym, so that may be a good thing as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems to be one of the stories down there is that Horford, for whatever reason, all of a sudden has come back and been more vocal and sounds more comfortable, I guess, around these guys. And maybe, much like you're talking about Embiid, being in this bubble environment has made him feel more comfortable around the guys, because I agree. I think most people thought when Horford got here, he was the guy who was going to kind of be, what does Brett like to say, like the adult in the room.
Right.
And that was the guy who was beating them. And then they got him, and it doesn't seem that part of why you like the Horford signing. Now, forget the fact that he hasn't played as well as you hope, but it was this savviness that he brought against you that I really haven't seen.
Yeah, and I wonder if part of this change to the offense, just schematically, he didn't sort of understand really how he fit into an offense that really didn't have very much pick and roll, pick and pop. And with that being reintroduced, that might really allow him to be more comfortable. Because I think we all had the perception that he was such a vet, he could fit into any system. But really, the shots that they were asking him to take, historically, if you go through his shot charts, they weren't really areas of comfort for him. And you could see it. You could see he wasn't all that comfortable on the floor offensively. And he talked about just not really finding his spots and understanding his role. So maybe introducing those elements into the offense really helped him find more comfort as well.
Josh Richardson was quoted saying that a few practices got a little chippy. How much stock do you put into that in terms of these guys competing at such a high level that, they are super engaged to the point where, hey, practice, they're going back and forth with each other?
I mean, I love it, right? It's not the NFL where you're really worried about beating people up. Chippy is great. Like, get in there, fight for rebounds, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think chippy is exactly what you want to hear, because it's people are letting their guard down and they're venting frustration, right? And that's how you really get closer.
Well, we'll start to find out a little bit more. Let me ask you this then, Jay. You got Friday. They're going to play Memphis, and then they got Oklahoma City on Sunday, and then Tuesday. So they got 3 exhibitions before they start, or 3 scrimmage games, I guess they're calling them. Is there anything that you want to find out in those 3 games before they go for real against the Pacers?
Yes. So you want to see what really does that top 9 rotation look like? What does Alec Burks really is he in that top 9 rotation, or is he not? Mm-hmm. Do they try to keep a conventional point guard initiator on the floor at all times, or do they stagger Shake with Ben more and sort of have Ben be the de facto backup point guard? Glenn Robinson, really, I've heard great things about what he's doing, and he feels much more comfortable. He shot really well before he got here, and then didn't play all that well in those 3 weeks after the trade deadline. But it feels like he might be crawling his way into that top 8 rotation. So I want to see where he fits. It's really about, where does that, 6 through 10 rotation go? Has Mike Scott sort of played his way back into that? you know, those are the kind of things I want to see. Who's really in shape? Who's added muscle? You know, has Furkan added any muscle and strength? Because I think that's going to be key for him.
It's so interesting that those are the kind of questions, too, that you're asking about guys returning to a season but wanting them to look like they're ready for next season. And that's something that we brought up a lot. Which guys have taken their game to the next level within the same season? I think those teams are going to be very interesting to find out, and which teams kind of stuck themselves back in the, who they were when that season kind of ended. And I think that's what makes this restart so up in the air and wide open. We'll have more on the Sixers' return. They play Friday. You can listen to the game right here on 97.3 ESPN at Jay Blevins NBA. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, Jay, take care, man.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yep, and he'll be back with more Sixers insight and analysis throughout. Our new Sixers insider, Jay Blevins, who has been covering this team for a couple of years now. So great insight from him. We got the team covered, Jay and Kevin McCormick on the website, 97.3ESPN.com. When the Sixers return, the best Sixers coverage